Go back and watch the very first episode of Family Guy. Death Has a Shadow, January 31st, 1999, aired right after Super Bowl 33. 22 million viewers tuning in. Peter Griffin gets drunk at a stag party, falls asleep at work, gets fired, lies to Lois about it, collects way too much welfare money, spends it recklessly, gets caught, and ends up in court. The episode lasts 22 minutes, and buried inside every single beat of that pilot is a joke the show has never stopped telling. Not the Kool-Aid man bursting through the courtroom wall, not the cutaway gags, something underneath all of it that's been running on a loop for 25 years straight, hiding in plain sight across 400 episodes, 2 cancellations, and a revival that turned this show into one of the longest-running animated series in American television history. Today we're pulling that joke apart, how it works, and why the show has gotten away with repeating it since the Clinton administration without anybody calling it out. But before we begin, I'd just like to kindly ask you all to subscribe. It's completely free, and it really helps us improve the videos for this wonderful community we've managed to build. Anyway, that's enough. Let's begin. To understand the joke, you have to understand Peter. Not the surface-level stuff everybody knows. Fat guy, loves beer, says dumb things. The structural role Peter plays in every single episode he's in. Peter Griffin is a man who is completely confident about things he has no right to be confident about. That's it. That's the engine. Seth MacFarlane based Peter's voice on a security guard he overheard while attending the Rhode Island School of Design. Not a professor, not an expert, a security guard who spoke with total authority about things he did not understand at all. MacFarlane heard that voice and built an entire character around the gap between confidence and competence. In Death Has a Shadow, Peter gets fired from the happy-go-lucky toy factory because he fell asleep on the job after drinking at a stag party. That's bad enough, but what makes it a Family Guy episode is what happens next. Peter doesn't panic, doesn't reflect, doesn't learn. He decides to hide it from Lois. He goes on welfare. When the check comes in way too high, he doesn't report it. He spends it. He buys ridiculous things. And when the whole scheme falls apart and he ends up in front of a judge, he gives a speech that he thinks is moving and profound. The judge responds by sentencing him to 24 months in prison. Peter walks into every situation believing he already knows enough to handle it. He never does. Things spiral, people get hurt, and then the show resets. That's not just the plot of the pilot. That is the plot of Family Guy. Every season, every year, from 1999 to right now. In E Peterbus Unum, Peter discovers his house isn't technically part of the United States and declares it a sovereign nation called Pretoria. He gets diplomatic immunity and immediately abuses it, singing a musical number about all the things he can now do without consequences. He annexes Joe Swanson's pool. The US government gets involved. It ends exactly how you'd expect. In Mr. Griffin Goes to Washington, Peter gets promoted to president of a tobacco company, not because he's qualified, but because he raised a complaint and the company figured making him president would shut him up. It works. He stops caring that the company is marketing cigarettes to children. The pattern is always the same. Peter encounters a situation. Peter assumes he can handle it. Peter makes it catastrophically worse. The world punishes him or bails him out. Next episode, full reset, 0 lessons learned. In Wasted Talent, Peter searches for a golden scroll hidden inside a Pawtucket Patriot beer bottle, drinking obsessively until he finds it. The prize leads him to a brewery tour that parodies Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Along the way, he trips and hurts his knee outside his house, clutching it and gasping in pain for nearly 30 seconds straight, a gag so iconic that the show repeats it across multiple future episodes whenever any character takes a similar fall. In Lethal Weapons, Lois takes karate lessons and starts beating Peter up every time he annoys her. Instead of changing his behavior, Peter calls in help. The problem isn't his actions. The problem is always someone else's reaction. Even across different decades and different writing staffs, the core loop holds. Peter's confidence never shrinks, his competence never grows, and the gap between those two things is the only fuel the show needs. And that pattern alone wouldn't be enough to carry a show for 25 years. What makes it work, what keeps it invisible, is the delivery mechanism the show invented to disguise the repetition. Family Guy didn't invent the cutaway gag. Monty Python's Flying Circus used them. Laugh-In used them. The Simpsons had versions of them scattered through seasons 4 and 5. But Family Guy did something no other show had done before. It made the cutaway the primary joke delivery system. Not a technique the show uses sometimes, the technique the show uses constantly, in virtually every episode, multiple times per scene. The structure is almost always the same. A character says a line, usually starting with, "This is worse than the time," or "This is like when," or "Remember when?" And the show cuts to a short scene that has nothing to do with the plot. Celebrity impressions, pop culture parodies, historical figures doing absurd things. The scene plays for a few seconds, sometimes longer, and then snaps back to the story. According to TV tropes, the episodes with the most cutaways, The Blind Side and Save the Clam, each pack in 16 of them in a single episode. Here's what the cutaways actually do for the show structurally. They break up the A-plot so frequently that the viewer never sits with the story long enough to notice it's the same story they watched last week. Peter does something stupid. Before the consequences land, the show cuts to a joke about Benjamin Disraeli, or Cookie Monster in rehab, or the Kool-Aid Man showing up somewhere he shouldn't be. By the time the cutaway ends and you're back in the main plot, the rhythm has reset. You're laughing at the last thing you saw, not analyzing the thing that came before it. The show is aware of this. In the Season 10 episode Back to the Pilot, Brian and Stewie travel back in time to the events of the first episode. While there, they see the characters standing around awkwardly in the moments that would be allotted for a cutaway gag, because in 1999, the cutaways hadn't been invented yet. The show then cuts to a more modern version of the same beat, where the family just checks their phones during the pause. It's a meta joke, but it's also an admission. The cutaways aren't decoration, they're the machinery that keeps the show running. Take them out, and the characters have nothing to do but stand there. Seth MacFarlane acknowledged this himself. On his 2017 Reddit AMA, when a user brought up the South Park episode that mocked Family Guy's cutaway structure, MacFarlane said the South Park creators were right to flag the setups, which had gotten loose at the time. He gave them credit for the observation. That's the creator of the show, admitting that the cutaway format had become so automatic it needed external criticism to course correct. But the cutaways aren't just covering for Peter's repetitive arc. They're covering for something bigger, and you can see it most directly in the moments the show decided to drop them entirely. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. On May 2nd, 2010, Family Guy aired its 151st episode. It was called Brian and Stewie. It was written by consulting producer Gary Janetti and directed by Dominic Bianchi, and it was unlike anything the show had ever done. The entire episode takes place inside a bank vault. Brian and Stewie are the only two characters. There are 0 cutaway gags. 0. There is no music, not even over the end credits. Seth MacFarlane, who voices both characters, spent the entire recording session talking to himself for 30 minutes straight. The concept came from producer Cara Vallo, who explained in an interview with Forbes that she and MacFarlane were both huge fans of All in the Family. They were specifically inspired by the episode Archie in the Cellar, in which Archie Bunker gets locked in his cellar with a bottle of vodka, and the show drops its usual format to do something more intimate. Vallo described Brian and Stewie as being like a one-act stage play. No standard gags, no bouncing off other characters, just two people trapped in a room dealing with each other. What happens in that vault is uncomfortable. Stewie soils his diaper and eventually convinces Brian to clean it. They find a gun in Brian's safety deposit box. Brian reveals, after getting drunk on a bottle of Glenfiddich scotch he'd stashed there, that he keeps the gun in case he ever wants to end his own life. He explains that his existence as an anthropomorphic dog leaves him unable to find real purpose, and that knowing the option exists gives him a kind of peace. Stewie responds by telling Brian that he loves him, not romantically, but as the one person in the world who gives his life meaning. That's the 151st episode of Family Guy. No chicken fight, no Conway Twitty, no, this is worse than the time. Just two characters sitting in a room being honest with each other. And what it reveals, by removing every single tool the show normally uses, is how dependent the standard formula is on distraction. Without the cutaways, there's nowhere to hide. The characters have to carry the episode on the strength of who they are, not on the strength of what random pop culture reference they can cut to next. Brian and Stewie works because Brian and Stewie are the two most developed characters on the show. They're the two characters the writers have invested the most emotional complexity into across multiple seasons. Peter doesn't appear in the episode. He can't, because Peter's entire function on the show is to be confidently wrong, suffer consequences, and reset. That works great when the cutaways are there to break up the rhythm. Without them, there's nothing to build an episode around. Brian and Stewie proved that Family Guy could be something other than what it usually is. And then, the very next week, the show went right back to being exactly what it usually is. That 151st episode stands as the clearest evidence that the people making Family Guy understand the machine they built. They know the cutaways are structural, not decorative. They know Peter's loop is a loop, and they made a conscious decision, one time, to show what the show looks like without any of it. And then they went right back to the formula, because the formula works. The question is why it works. And the answer is hiding in the one recurring gag that nobody thinks of as a joke. The giant chicken fight is the key to understanding all of it. In Da Boom, the third episode of Season 2, which aired on December 26, 1999, Peter receives an expired coupon from a giant chicken named Ernie. This triggers a fist fight. The fight takes Peter and Ernie across Quahog, through traffic, over buildings, and ends with Peter slamming Ernie's head into a photocopier before both of them fall off a skyscraper. Peter lands on top, Ernie appears dead. The scene cuts back to the main plot and nobody mentions it again. Then Ernie comes back, in Blind Ambition, Season 4, Episode 3. Then in No Chris Left Behind, Season 6. Then Internal Affairs, Season 10. Then Trump Guy, Season 17. Each time, the fight is bigger, longer, more destructive, more absurd. The longest one clocks in at over 6 minutes and includes time travel, a cloning lab, and a zero-gravity fistfight in outer space. In one episode, Peter and Ernie stop fighting long enough to have dinner together with Ernie's wife Nicole. They almost make peace. Then they fight over who gets to pay the bill, and the whole thing starts again. Once roughly every season for over 2 decades, the same two characters fight over the same expired coupon in increasingly elaborate ways, with the same outcome every time. Peter wins, Ernie appears to die, Ernie comes back. The show kept doing it until October 2025, when executive producer Alex Sulkin confirmed in an interview with TV Line that Ernie had been permanently killed off in the Season 25 episode The Chicken or the Meg. Sulkin explained that the character had run its course and the fights had become hard to top. The chicken fight is Family Guy's thesis statement disguised as a recurring gag. It is a conflict that cannot be resolved because neither party is capable of learning from it. Peter keeps fighting because that's what Peter does. Ernie keeps coming back because that's what the show needs him to do. The cause of the fight, an expired coupon, is so trivial that even the characters forget about it. The destruction is massive, the consequences are zero, and the audience watches it happen over and over because each iteration is wrapped in enough new spectacle, new locations, new parodies, new escalation, that it feels fresh even though the underlying structure hasn't changed at all. That's the same joke the show tells in every single episode. A character does something foolish for a trivial reason, things escalate way past the point of reason, massive destruction occurs, nobody learns anything, reset. The chicken fight just strips away the cutaways and the B-plots and the guest stars and shows the mechanism naked. It's the show's entire engine compressed into a 6-minute action sequence about a man punching a chicken because of a coupon. Conway Twitty is the same joke told differently. Starting in the Season 5 episode, Bill and Peter's Bogus Journey, the show began cutting to real archive footage of country singer Conway Twitty performing, sometimes for minutes at a time. McFarlane called Twitty the most astonishingly uncharismatic performer in the history of the business in a 2009 appearance on Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. The writers used him as a gag because it wasted expensive airtime on something deliberately anticlimactic. The joke isn't the footage. The joke is that the show is doing nothing, on purpose, and daring you to keep watching. It's the confidence without competence pattern flipped outward at the audience. The show is confidently wasting your time, and the audacity of it is the punchline. Peter's knee injury from wasted talent is the same joke in miniature. He trips, hurts his knee, and clutches it while inhaling and exhaling in pain for nearly 30 seconds. The gag became so iconic that the show calls back to it repeatedly across later seasons. It's a man who cannot stop hurting himself in exactly the same way, reacting in exactly the same way, every single time. It's the loop in its most compressed form. Every iconic Family Guy bit, when you pull it apart, runs on the same engine. Trivial cause, disproportionate escalation, zero growth, reset. The pattern line up Family Guy's 25 years, and what you're looking at isn't a show that ran out of ideas. It's a show that found one idea in January 1999 and figured out how to repackage it so efficiently that it survived 2 cancellations, earned 9 Emmy Awards, got renewed through 2029, and will celebrate its 30th anniversary without ever fundamentally changing what it is. The pilot told you everything. Peter Griffin is a man who walks into situations with complete confidence and no understanding. The cutaways exist to keep you from noticing that this is the only story the show tells. The chicken fights exist to show you the mechanism stripped bare. Brian and Stewie exist to show you what the show could be if it ever wanted to tell a different kind of story. And Conway Twitty exists to prove that the show doesn't want to. It would rather waste 3 minutes of your time on a dead country singer and dare you to change the channel than change the formula that's kept it on the air for a quarter century. That's not laziness, that's confidence. The exact same kind Peter Griffin has, total, unshakable, and completely unjustified by the evidence. The difference is that for Peter, the confidence is the joke. For the show itself, the confidence is the strategy, and it's been working since Super Bowl 33. Seth MacFarlane told Reddit he stopped writing for Family Guy in 2010. The show didn't miss a beat, because the machine doesn't need its creator at the keyboard anymore. The joke tells itself. It always has. And at this point, after 23 seasons, 400 episodes, 9 Emmys, and a mega renewal deal with Disney that takes the show through its 30th anniversary in 2029, nobody at Fox has any reason to fix what was never broken. The joke landed in 1999. It's still landing now. The only thing that changed is the wrapping paper. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.